Repeats are part of music. Restatements, insistence, structure, term of endearment, depending of the emotional register, it has a purpose which conveys to us something meaningful. And it doesn't have to be repeated with difference in the dynamics of the range or the articulation of the tone. It just simply has to be restated. Oh, how wonderful to see you. Truly so. Indeed. There is syntax in music where the rests and the restatements are part of an echo chamber of the soul. Inner mirror of what we express or what we receive, impress. And ultimately, we are easily bored because easily distracted today. But in the past, people took longer to establish a mood, a relation, a statement. People immerse themselves in their feelings and all the levels of innuendos in them. And so operas lasted for days with a lot of interruptions, a little bit like today's serials of storytelling in many episodes. Or the newspapers published novels which were not in book format, but only in daily release. That keeps you expecting for more. In fact, that is the very purpose of longing, through suspension or through delayed resolution, an escaped note before you return to the final note, which is the punctuation of your sentence. And if you take the repeat, you should not think of it as a repeat. Most of the time it was because they had to produce so much music that the notation of the repeat was a sort of a shorthand notation. It didn't mean that it had to be by obligation, ornamented, decorated, and basically made different just in case it's boring in the restatement, because the restatement was not boring. It was meaningful. It was deep. It was simple. It was earnest. It reflected how people chose their words, avoided words, the art of avoiding the obvious when you exchange about your feelings, trying to understand if the other side has also feelings of the same type for you, friendly or lovely or whichever. I find that because today things go fast, rather than fast, they go instantaneous. We prefer the ready-made. And so people say often, I'm not going to play the repeats. Or juries, auditions, exams say we don't have time for the repeat. Then, of course, we have to be flexible and understand the purpose of it, even when we don't use it. And when we use it, we need to integrate it as a continuum rather than a restatement. Debussy, in his music, doesn't do repeats with markings, double line, two dots on the staves. Rather, he restates echo cells of each pattern. And so it's almost like a gentle stuttering or an insistence of an idea that is only the nucleus of it, two or three notes, restated, and not developed per se by Debussy, but going to something else. And so you have a succession of slots of musical atmospheres. And then somehow there is a invisible thread that holds them all together that you sort of retroactively are aware of once you have completed it. Because it's the art of the subtle balance between redundancy and restatement, simplicity and simple, complexity and confusingly complicated. Each of these aesthetics carry their own need to either restate, either vary, like a variation on the theme, either restate it, either just state it once and go to the next. The recapitulations are mostly for symmetric production of structure, but also for recalling thematic materials that now are becoming friends after you discovered them in the exposition. In other words, the educated listener can navigate through the thought process of the composer. What elements of the theme are used in the development or not, or how much? What modulations bring us to which key and how we return? In other words, connoisseurs taste like they taste a wine, like they taste a food, like they appreciate a specific painting or a specific director's artwork from a specific film genre. And the more you know, the more you appreciate, the more you're discerning, and the more you're critical. Why didn't the composer do this or that? Or why is this ending not emphatic? Why is this ending almost fading? Why doesn't the development carry this and that? It's rare to have such an educated audience unless you know the piece. Or if you don't, you are familiar enough with the form, like Haydn sonatas, Beethoven sonatas, with developments and two themes. And they don't use always the pattern, no more than Bach in the fugues uses the pattern of the entrances through the relatives and the subdominant and then the dominant and then the stretto and then the coda. No, I think you learn those rules to liberate yourself from them, because that's what you do when you study contrapoint, fugue, harmony, any of the grammar of music. And by analyzing the pieces of others, especially great artists before your time, you observe and you see that they only purposely, for whatever they needed in each situation, broke the rules that were set. But the set rules are there to learn how to bypass them with a purpose rather than be obedient without a meaning. There is something about repetitivity that is necessary and is only evaluated by the composer. And outside of the time period, we have difficulty accepting some lengths in Schubert, some repeats in Bach, some symmetries for the purpose of it. And it's okay to explore by doing half this, half that, and see how you structure better your arched phrasing, how the eloquence of your discourse reaches its point. And if you miss something between the structure and the statement, in the redundancy of the repeat, or the restatement, or the recap,